I was staring at the text thread like it might change if I looked long enough. He still hadn't replied. 3 weeks. Not even a seen notification. The man I had once called my forever hadn't even acknowledged me, like I didn't exist. The worst part? I deserved it. I told myself I was chasing a better life. That I was tired of waiting around for love to feel like something other than routine. So I burned it all down. My home. My marriage. My reputation. For what I thought would be freedom. But now I'm sitting in a high-rise apartment I can't afford, wearing a dress I bought to impress someone who forgot my name 5 minutes after I left his bed. And the silence from the only man who ever really loved me? It's louder than any party I ever left him for. I keep wondering what I'd say if he finally answered. But the truth is, I don't think I deserve to be heard anymore. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you're watching this alone, because you're not going to believe how far I let it go. His name was Jake, and he was 12 years younger than me. I met him on a Tuesday, in the gym locker room hallway, while I was juggling my headphones and pretending to care about my workout. He was a trainer, tan, charming, and with that casually reckless energy that made you feel like the center of a movie scene just by standing near him. And I was Melissa. 38. Married. Mother of 2. Invisible in every room except the ones where I was folding laundry or unloading the dishwasher. At first, it was harmless. He'd ask how my workouts were going. Joke about my terrible form on the rowing machine. Compliment my determination like I wasn't just trying to outrun the numbness I felt back home. My husband, Derek, worked nights as an ICU nurse. He was always tired. Always stressed. We hadn't kissed like we meant it in months. The only touches we exchanged were passing brushes in the hallway or the occasional quick hug after dinner. But Jake made me feel like I still existed. He started offering me one-on-one training sessions, said he had a free slot on Fridays. I told myself I needed the help. That it was about fitness. That I'd never actually cross a line. But of course, I already had the moment I started dressing nicer just to sweat in front of him. The first time he texted me outside the gym, I felt it in my throat. A mix of guilt and giddy panic. Hey, you left your water bottle. Want me to hold it till tomorrow? I told myself that was all it was. But then came more messages. About music. About movies. About how I didn't seem like just some wife at the gym. And I soaked it up like sunlight. It escalated fast. He invited me out for a smoothie after a session. Then a drink. Then a nightcap. Then a night. It was slow and sudden all at once, like tripping in slow motion. The first time I lied to Derek about where I was, I cried in the car before walking into Jake's apartment. But once I was inside, once Jake looked at me like I was wanted, I forgot everything else. At home, the walls were beige and quiet. With Jake, everything felt like neon. I told myself I'd stop. That it was just an escape hatch from the pressure. But when Jake started calling me his girl, I realized I didn't want to go back to being Derek's wife. So I didn't. I told Derek the truth, or parts of it. That I hadn't been happy. That I needed to find myself. That it wasn't about someone else, even though it absolutely was. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just nodded like someone being handed a death sentence. He asked if I was sure. I told him yes. I wasn't. I moved out 2 weeks later. Into a small studio apartment that smelled like old carpet and desperation. But Jake was there every weekend, still calling me sexy, still whispering that I deserved more than a life of PTA meetings and bedtime routines. At first, it was bliss. We'd stay out late, eat whatever we wanted, make love like we had nothing else to do. He said I was the most spontaneous person he'd ever met. I laughed because I hadn't felt spontaneous since my 20s. He didn't care that I was older. At least, that's what I believed. Until the questions started. You don't want more kids, right? Have you always had those stretch marks? Why do you always want to go home early? They stung. More than I admitted. I ignored the warnings, thinking I could still be fun enough, hot enough, young enough. But the cracks started forming. One night, I asked if he wanted to meet my kids. He froze. Isn't that so fast, he said, sipping his beer and not meeting my eyes. I mean, I'm not trying to play dad or anything. And there it was. The line. I had blown up my entire life for a man who didn't even want to be part of the one thing that mattered most, my family. I told myself it was fine. That it was just too soon. That we were still figuring it out. But he started pulling away after that. Canceling plans. Not replying for hours. Calling me babe less and hey more. The intimacy dried up like spilled wine on a paper towel. Fast. Irreversible. Then came the final hit. I posted a photo of us at dinner on Instagram. My first real we're together post. He untagged himself. And didn't call me for 3 days. When I finally confronted him, he said, "You're amazing, Mel, but I think we just got caught up in something, you know? I never meant to hurt you." I stared at him like he was a stranger. I had given him my body, my loyalty, my home. And all I got back was a 3-sentence breakup over takeout noodles. I drove home that night to my empty apartment, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at my phone. Nothing from Derek. Not even a "how are you?" Not even hate. I checked the calendar. My daughter's birthday was next week. I hadn't even been invited to the party Derek and his mom were throwing. I was no longer someone's wife. Not even someone's affair. Just, no one. And it was all my fault. 3 weeks after Jake ended things, I showed up at my son's soccer game without telling anyone. I stood near the back, behind a cluster of folding chairs and coffee-toting moms. I didn't want to cause a scene, I just wanted to see my kids. From a distance. Like some weird ghost version of the mom I used to be. Zach scored a goal. His face lit up. I clapped instinctively, and he looked around, like he heard it. Like he felt me. Then he turned back to the game. He didn't see me. Afterward, Derek walked past me without a word, his hand on our daughter Chloe's shoulder, both of them laughing about something. She was holding a cupcake. Probably from that bakery we used to go to on weekends. My chest tightened watching her lick the frosting off like it was the best moment in her life, and I wasn't in it. I went back to my car and sobbed with the windows up. Later that night, I texted Derek. "Hey. I was at the game. Just wanted to say congrats to Zach. He looked great out there. He left me on read." I wish I could say that was unusual. But he hadn't really spoken to me outside of short, cold exchanges about drop-offs or scheduling. I didn't blame him. What could he even say? I left him for a man I barely knew and then tried to re-enter the picture like nothing had happened. But the silence was louder than any fight we ever had. I tried to throw myself into work, but I was temping at a front desk answering phones for a dental office. People looked through me. I was background noise. A woman in slacks and tired eyes who offered water while they waited for their cleanings. When I finally worked up the nerve to ask Chloe if she wanted to sleep over one weekend, she hesitated. "I think Daddy said we're going to the zoo with Sarah." Sarah. The name hit me like glass. I didn't even know he was seeing someone seriously. But of course he was. Derek was kind. Loyal. The kind of man who never would have left me, even when I made him feel invisible. The next time I picked up the kids, she was there. Sarah. Younger. Of course. Blonde, in that effortless way. Wearing jeans and a baseball cap, laughing with Chloe as they packed a snack bag for the park. She didn't flinch when I walked in. Just smiled politely and said, "Hi, I'm Sarah." I nodded like I wasn't dying. Chloe hugged me quickly, but I could feel her attention drifting back toward Sarah. Toward their new life. Their routines. Their inside jokes. I was the visitor now. I started going out more, bars, brunches, anything to feel human. But it never stuck. Conversations felt shallow. I couldn't stop comparing every man to what I had thrown away. I downloaded dating apps. Swiped for hours. Went on a few dinners with men who wanted to talk about CrossFit and crypto. But they didn't see me. Not like Jake pretended to. Not like Derek used to. Then one night, I saw it. Jake had posted a photo on Instagram with another woman, someone I recognized from the gym. His arm was around her waist, his caption said, "Sometimes the real thing sneaks up on you." I threw my phone across the room. It cracked the drywall. I didn't cry. I just sat on the floor and stared at nothing for an hour, wondering what was wrong with me that I kept becoming disposable to people. Jake. Derek. Even my kids, in a way. I kept replaying everything in my head, every decision, every excuse. I told myself I was chasing happiness, but it felt more like I was just running away from boredom. I used to think I was so self-aware. But now I couldn't even trust myself to know what I wanted. My therapist, yes, I finally got one, said something that gutted me. "You didn't leave your marriage for Jake. You left it because you didn't like who you were inside it." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. She was right. I had no idea who I was without attention. When Jake gave it to me, it felt like oxygen. When Derek stopped, it felt like starvation. But the problem wasn't them, it was me. I didn't know how to exist without someone else making me feel worthy. I started journaling again. Stupid little entries. Half-finished thoughts. Sometimes just words. Unseen. Used. Replaceable. But slowly, it started to feel like I was dragging myself up from the bottom of a well. I made it a goal to call my kids every night, even if they didn't answer. Just to leave a message. Just to remind them I was still here. That I hadn't given up on being their mother. Some nights they'd text back. Chloe sent a selfie with a pancake she made. Zach told me he scored again. Small things. But it mattered. I didn't ask Derek for anything. Not more time. Not another chance. I just tried to be present. To show up. Even if I had to sit at the back of every game from now on. Then one night, Chloe called me. Actually called. "Mom," she said, her voice tiny. "Can I come stay with you next weekend? Just us?" I almost dropped the phone. I said yes, of course. I told her I'd plan something fun. Something simple. After we hung up, I sat on my bed and cried for the first time in weeks, not from pain, but from the tiniest sliver of hope. Maybe it wasn't too late to become someone new. Not someone's fantasy. Not someone's mistake. Just me. But I had no idea what came next. And part of me was still terrified I'd already lost everything that mattered. The weekend Chloe stayed with me, I cleaned my whole apartment. Not just the counters and laundry, I mean the baseboards, the dusty picture frames, the old makeup I hadn't touched since Jake left. I needed everything to feel new. Like maybe if the place looked like home, it could be one again. She showed up in a hoodie 2 sizes too big and a backpack covered in stickers. "Dad says hi," she said as she walked in. I nodded, pretending that didn't feel like a punch to the stomach. I took her to the Science Museum. She still loved space exhibits. Still gasped at the glowing stars in the planetarium, like she was 5 again. She held my hand without thinking. That moment alone made the whole year of regret worth it. Later, we made grilled cheese and danced in the kitchen to some silly pop song she liked. I let her do my makeup. I looked ridiculous. She told me I looked cool. That night, when she was asleep on the pull-out couch, I stared at her and realized just how much I'd missed, how much she had grown up without me. And that grief, it was different than anything I'd ever felt. It wasn't loud. It was quiet and constant. Like a low hum in the bones. Regret wrapped in the shape of bedtime stories I didn't read and pancakes I didn't flip. But I also knew I couldn't live in that grief anymore. I had to do something. So I started rebuilding. Slowly. I made a schedule with Derek, asked for 1 night a week, no overnights, just dinner and homework and maybe a walk afterward. I didn't ask to renegotiate the past. Just to show up. At first, he was cold. Professional. He reminded me that this wasn't about me or him anymore, it was about stability for the kids. I said I understood. And I did. One night, after dropping them off, I sat in my car in his driveway. I wasn't ready to leave. I texted him. "Thank you. For letting me be part of their lives again. I know I don't deserve it." I didn't expect him to reply. But he did. "They're your kids, Mel. You just lost your way." That message nearly shattered me. Not because it hurt, but because it was kind. A kindness I hadn't earned, but one I wanted to be worthy of. I started therapy twice a week. I stopped stalking Jake's Instagram. I muted Derek and Sarah's wedding photos. I stopped asking myself why the universe seemed to reward them and punish me. I just kept going. Not towards something exciting. Not towards someone. Just forward. Eventually, I got offered a permanent position at the office. Nothing glamorous, but it meant benefits, consistency, structure. I bought a new set of plates. I started reading books again. Not to impress anyone, just to remember what it felt like to think without noise. One night, after a long shift, I came home to find a note Chloe had left in her backpack. "I like it here now. It feels like a second home again. Also, your grilled cheese is better than Dad's, but don't tell him I said that." I read it 5 times. I pressed it to my chest. It didn't erase everything I'd done, but it reminded me that not all bridges burn to ash. Some just take time to rebuild. I saw Jake again once, 6 months later. He was walking out of a coffee shop, holding hands with that girl from the gym. He didn't see me. And I didn't want him to. I didn't hate him. I didn't miss him. I didn't even feel embarrassed anymore. He was a chapter. A badly written one. But necessary. Because it took losing everything I thought I wanted to understand what I actually needed. Derek and I never got back together. I didn't expect to. Sarah was kind to my kids, and they seemed happy. That was enough. I started dating again, but with different intentions. No more chasing chaos or validation. I wanted quiet this time. Peace. Someone who didn't need fireworks to feel real. Sometimes I still cry. When I see photos from the years I missed. When Chloe tells me she had a bad dream and I wasn't there to hold her. When Zach hits a milestone and I realize I wasn't in the photo album from that month. But I stopped punishing myself daily. Regret is heavy, but it doesn't have to be a prison. You can carry it and still move forward. You can mess up spectacularly and still come home to yourself. And that's what I'm trying to do now. One day at a time.